Hello, this is Cynthia from Really Clear. Today I'm going to talk to you about using double pointed needles, Flexiflips, 2 circulars, and 1 long circular. These are all ways that you can knit in the round. We're going to start out with double pointed needles, and I have all my stitches on 1 needle. I think that's a little easier for casting on. I have groups of 8 stitches that I'm going to put onto 4 needles, and I'm going to use the 5th needle to actually do the knitting. So I'm just going to move these stitches. I usually like to cast them onto 1 needle and then move them onto all 4. That's just easier, I think, but do what you like. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now I have everything on the 4 needles, and I'm going to use the 5th needle to actually begin my knitting. I want to make sure when I'm working that all of the stitches are facing in the same direction. My working yarn is here, and my tail is there. I'm going to ignore the tail, and I'll just put it down in that way. Alrighty, so I want to make sure nothing is twisted. So all of my cast on edge is facing in the same direction, and that looks good. I'm going to move the stitches up on the left needle so that they're easy to get to. I'm going to go into the left needle. Starting everything is a little bit of a pain, but not too bad. I put the needle in, and then I make sure that I'm working behind the needles, and I start to knit. I ignore every needle except the 2 needles that I'm actually knitting with. When I get to the end of a row, not a round, I have a fresh needle in my hand, and I'm going to use that to knit the next needle. My working yarn's here, so I'm going to go on to the next needle there. That's all there is to knitting in the round on double pointed needles. Flexiflips are basically double pointed needles with a cord in the middle of them, so they're flexible. There are other products on the market that do similar things. This is a needle by Addie, but I thought I would use it because it's my most favored needle for this purpose. So I'm going to use a new Flexiflip and just go in. And this time, what I'm going to do is knit across 2 needles, because we're going to have 2 needles rather than 4 needles, and we'll knit with the 3rd. So I'll show you how that works. I'm going to keep going across with this same Flexiflip. I'm knitting English here just because it's more comfortable for me, but you can certainly do this using continental knitting. Now the next Flexiflip is going to go into these 2 needles. These work exactly like double points now, so I will get rid of the last double point, and what I'm going to do is begin to work down 1 row with a 3rd Flexiflip. So I'm going to go down, and you can really see how this works. So I'll finish this row out and then come back and show you 2 circular needles. Okay, I'm at the end of the row, and what I'm going to do is use 2 different colors of circular needles so you can see what's going on. I'm going to transfer half the stitches onto 1 circular and the other half onto the other circular. Okay, so I have half the stitches on the light needle and half the stitches on the dark needle. If I look at my working yarn, it's on the light needle, which means that I just finished that. So I'm going to start working with the dark needle. And to do that, I'm not taking a third needle. I'm actually using only the dark needle. I'm going to move the tip down to the beginning. I'm going to use the other side of the dark needle, and I'm going to start knitting down that row. All right, I'm at the end of that row. I'm going to drop the dark needle, move everything to the cord part of it, and push the light needle back so that the tip is near the working yarn. The working yarn is remaining under the needles, and I'm going to start working with both ends of the light needle. And when I get to the end of that row, I would drop the light needle, I push it up into the cord area, and take the dark needle, pull it back, and then begin knitting in that direction. So you're going to work on one circular needle totally, then the other. Now let me show you a magic loop, or one long circular. For that, I'm going to have both needle tips facing the same direction. Let me get that onto my needles. So I'm going to put one needle tip with the working yarn down on this end. I'm going to put one needle tip on the right, one needle tip on the left needle, and then I will continue working in a circle. So let me get the stitches off the two circular needles, and I'll be back when I have that going. I'm going to start knitting down this row. So to do that, I'm going to pull this needle out. I'm going to keep the left side where it is. I'm going to pull the right side out so I have a lot of cord, and I'm going to just start working down the next row. Again, I'm keeping everything behind. I'm working down the row. Okay, so I'm at the end, and now this cord is loose. I want the tip of the needle at the top again. So I'm going to push that back. And now, again, the bottom needle or the right needle, I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to start working down the row. And you just keep doing that around and around. So it's just a different method. I use all of these methods depending on what I'm doing, what the project's like, and what I'm in the mood for, and what needles happen to be around when I'm working. So I hope this was useful to you, and I hope you enjoy knitting in the round.